Hey there guys, welcome back to Texas Beer Reviews, and on this episode we'll be looking at a very popular barrel-aged imperial stout. This is Founders KBS, as they list the highly acclaimed. So this is Kentucky Breakfast Stout, and it is a imperial stout aged in bourbon barrels with coffee, and I think chocolate too. Yeah. Coffee and chocolate, oak bourbon barrels. This is the 2016 vintage, and it is 12.4% ABV, bottled on March 3rd of this year. So quite a few months on it. This bottle itself is actually courtesy of Kyle Davis, Beer Advocate, so thank you very much. Now, Texas does see of course, Founders distribution and this beer. It's usually pretty limited. Stores around the city maybe get 1-2 cases, besides maybe Specs downtown or a few other stores that might get a few more. And it goes pretty quickly. It's usually 1-2 bottles per person, maybe 4-pack if you're lucky. And I think it's like in that the $14 range of 4-pack, 15 maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, but it's a barrel-aged imperial stout. So I have had KBS plenty of times. I think I've only had the 2016 version once. The bottles don't normally come with tape on this, but when we send beer to each other, some of us put electrical tape in case it leaks, or to stop it from leaking. Anyway, so I, of course, as always, do not have a bottle opener. So I want to pause it in case it wants to corrupt. Alright. So, anyway, but I haven't had it since, I think, like, right around the release time, so earlier this year, March. So get into it and see how it's tasting right now, I guess. Usually you don't. Coffee and stouts like this fades. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it kind of, I guess stays or blends there. Anyway, usually it kind of blends in more with the beer, so it is more of a smoother coffee. But see how it is. So, pours out a pretty dark brown to black color. It's got a pretty nice tan mocha head. It's a little bit lighter there in the video, but quite a bit darker here. Pretty big head actually too. Quite nice. So, let's check out the aroma. So it's not super intense. Getting some bourbon, some chocolate, some coffee, just a slight bit of an alcohol burn there as well. Maybe some bit of dark fruit there. But really, it's the whiskey and the chocolate. I think they're standing out most to me. But it's also not kind of an in-your-face aroma. That was just taken out of my wine cellar at about 54, 55 degrees. So perfect temperature. Yeah, not super intense on the aroma, but nice whiskey, some chocolate. So, of course, smells good. So check out the taste. Cheers. Definitely a bit more flavor. Again, in the aroma, the whiskey and the chocolate stands out to me the most. Pretty nice bourbon flavor. Melds really well with kind of this nice dark chocolate. Sort of a somewhat of a Hershey Kiss type chocolate. Maybe not as intense or syrupy, something like Bourbon County. Do get some coffee, Get a nice roastiness on the back end, smoke. And getting some lingering bitterness, roasted malts, and a bit of an alcohol burn. A little bit in the nose, kind of warms you. Kind of a nice nuttiness too. Yeah, just a bit of alcohol in the nose, very bit, but does leave a bit of a warming sensation too, which is nice. The body is not very thick. I would say it's probably more on the medium thin side. Carbonation's, I'd say probably pretty spot on for it. Maybe even a tad higher than a lot of other or some other barrel aged stouts. I like them with quite a bit lower carb. This is still pretty good, but it's maybe just a little bit higher than I'd like. Really just the bourbon chocolate kind of coffee like flavor. It's not a whole ton of coffee. I feel like I get more of it on the back end, kind of lingers a bit, and also a bit of the roasted malts, but it does linger quite a bit. It does have some nice lingering bitterness to it. But yeah, big flavors of the whiskey for sure, the bourbon, with some nice chocolate. But overall, I think it's drinking pretty well. The coffee is not too present, so if you're looking for a coffee bomb, it's not going to be it. But, nice, easier drinking, bourbon, chocolate type flavors. I think overall, probably go ahead and do 4.25 out of 5 stars. I do wish this had a bigger body. I do wish it had more coffee. Even a bit more chocolate, a bit lower carb, and I think this would put it definitely at least at a 4.5 and above. But I still really like it, actually, quite a bit more than I thought I would. KBS kind of through the years has had some variation. When I first had KBS a couple of years back, maybe about 3 years back, I was blown away. I mean, it was my favorite beer. I thought it was so luscious and chocolatey and coffee and the bourbon. It was all just melded so well together. And since then, it's hard to tell whether it's just the years afterwards maybe haven't been as good, or it's just because I've had so many other beer out there in the same style that I think might be better. That you come back to it and you're like, well, maybe it's not as good as I remember. But it's still a really great beer, and it's definitely something you can find here in Texas if you look well enough. In March or April is when they do the releases. Of course, by the time it gets here. So it's kind of what you're into. You haven't had it. I'd keep your eye out next year. In that time, try to pick up some Founders KBS. Founders really good. Really does a lot of really great solid stuff. Their Russian Imperial Stout, Founders Porter. For dark beers, they're pretty spot on. They've got some other stuff that's pretty good as well. But for the 2016, I'm digging it. I don't know if I would say to sit on this that much longer though. You probably get a little bit more of a chocolate flavor, and the carbonation hopefully would kind of mellow out a little bit, but the body is going to thin out as well, so it's really not going to improve there. So I would probably recommend to probably drink them sooner than later. I mean, if you want to age it, go ahead, but I'd say sooner than later. Kind of always felt this way about KBS as well. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Founders KBS. So with that said, as usual, for the most part, sort of, think global, drink local somewhat, and cheers.